What's up, guys? So today I'm gonna show you guys the R6 swap in a Raptor 660R. I'm gonna break down what this project even is and including the 10 years that it took me to build this. It was never an absolute priority for me. It was always something that I work on after work. But yeah, essentially the frame from a Raptor 660 is from here following, basically the white, as you guys can see, and up to there. And then everything else I cut off and made custom myself, bent the tubing. Actually, kind of a funny story. Probably 8 years ago, it was running, and I didn't think that these motor mounts on the side were important, so I never had them. And then chain fell off one time, got stuck, and the entire motor twisted and bent the entire frame. So now I rebuilt the frame stronger, put in these bars on the side, and made it like that. So yeah, first thing I would like to talk about, I think, is upgraded suspension from a YZ 450R. I'm gonna send this to get revalved and put better springs on here and upgrade that. I did a A-arm upgrade on the front top because the stock Raptor 660 A-arm does not fit these bigger shocks. So that had to be done. And then let's see here. What else do we have on the front suspension? I would say that's about it. And then, man, this clutch line was such a pain. So there's no extended clutch line, so I had to make something custom. This is a little bit temporary, so I'm gonna have to make a new one. I got a thicker radiator. I think it's pretty important to get the temperature cooler. I got a fan from I believe a Honda Civic. It's a bigger fan, probably twice the size, cools down a lot better, and it's wired as well up here, so I can turn it on manually if need to. Same with these headers. I kind of did this more for fun. So these headers are off I believe a Honda Civic as well, and I kind of made the exhaust kind of like this, so you guys can see how the exhaust runs this way, disconnects right there if need be, runs up kind of around and goes up over here. Then I split it under here to the second exhaust just to make it look kind of cool. That's the entire exhaust system. Super easy to take apart. Comes apart in 3 pieces. That'd be 1, 2, 3, something like mid-pipe. More for looks. I think when it's all powder coated and clean, it'll look pretty cool. Here I welded a custom aluminum tank. Looking back, I probably wish I would have kept more of the Raptor frame, but it was kind of too late. I was too deep in the project. Didn't really want to upgrade to a Raptor 700. Maybe one day I'm thinking to do another swap, like a Raptor 700 with a MT-09. Maybe it's just a little bit smaller engine and put a turbo on it for fun. But yeah, so custom fuel tank fits in here nice and tight, perfectly. Fan is important. A little bit thicker radiator is important. Seems like it overheats often. Sport bikes meant to be moving at cruising speeds, but when you're at the sand dunes, not as often. Let's see. So this fuel pump is off a Mercury boat. It's been a headache and a half just because the stock fuel pump on an R6 kind of has like a cutoff little switch. Basically I have someone that's like building me a chip to where I have this. So I have a PSI gauge, and then if you look back here, I have a little fuel pressure sensor. It'll be wired to a little chip right here, and essentially turns off at 3 PSI. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of powering it up, running roughly 3 volts, and you can see the pressure is just building up. So we have the fuel tank, Mercury for a boat fuel pump, nice and quiet. I like it a lot better than the stock pump. Through a fuel filter, PSI gauge just to check and make sure the pressure is good, and then sensor, and then straight into the carb. Custom airbox, talk about a little bit later. I have a choke right here, super easy to start up. I'll turn it off for now, but runs nice. I actually ended up rebuilding this motor completely, but that's a whole story in itself. So this is kind of what the bike looks like from this side. Doing a little bit of wiring right now. I cut down all the wiring harness a lot shorter. Didn't really need to be that long. This is kind of more for looks than anything. I don't think it really does much to cool down the bike. But the temperature is regulated now. On the R6, you have a overflow tank towards kind of like the back over here. So I have this overflow set up right here. So that was a big lesson for me. Absolutely need that. I kind of deleted it, but definitely need it, or at least remove the cap and don't let the coolant come out when it gets too hot, or watch that. So what else should we talk about here? Got the headers. This is the engine mount that I kind of put together. Should have thought a little bit more about like the oil filter, because you can't really change it without having to at least take off, this side step. Not a big deal, right? 2 bolts, maybe a third one over there, kind of pop, a fourth one here, pop it off, and then you could do the oil filter change. I have here a spring tensioner. Don't absolutely need it. I just didn't like that the chain was always rubbing here through the whoops on the sand dunes when you're kind of going like, and so I just noticed ruining the chain a little too fast. So I have that big sprocket here. I believe I have a roughly 65 tooth. This is a Raptor 660 carrier. Working on a chain tensioning system here that's going to work a little bit better. The original Raptor one is a multitasking, is basically like an aluminum bar, and then you kind of tighten bolts. It wasn't working too good for me, and it's kind of finicky. This is essentially a tie rod, or you could call it a whatever. Left hand, this is left hand thread, this is right hand thread. Twist it with the bolt and you'll push it out and slide in this little channel back and forth. A little bit of design, I guess, for fun. R6. I'm excited to definitely clean this thing up and make it perfect and powder coat it, new plastics and everything, but gotta work out all the kinks first. So yeah, for the carburetor, man, I had to upsize a lot the jets, but it runs much better now. So what's important to understand about the R6 and maybe the older bikes is you absolutely have to have hoses connected to the airbox. So what I have here is this connects into that 8-and fitting, and then on the front these would connect into the 6-and fitting. And basically, as long as you have equal pressure, then the bike runs good. What would happen is like mid-range, it would just choke out because I didn't have those connected at all. I didn't think it was important. But now that I have them connected, it runs amazing and revs all the way through. So this is kind of how I did the electrical. I shortened the harness by a lot. Got to clean it up a little bit. Probably got to cut out the metal right here a little bit deeper. What I used was a seat off of Suzuki. I forgot what it was called. A Suzuki something. And fits in there nice and tight. I got to organize it a little bit since I've been working on the wiring. But it fits in there nice and tight. No gap here usually. Nice and clean, soft seat. I was thinking to put like a YFZ or Raptor seat, kind of cover this area. I could, but then have to cut up all of the frame and redo the electronics and stuff, and not sure how much I want to do that. I'm trying to get this thing finished up finally. What's another cool thing that I did? I shortened the fuel sensor. I don't know if the tank is like deeper or taller, but the fuel light would turn on way too often and there'd be so much gas in there, so I cut and shortened that. How did I connect the linkage? There we go. So the linkage connects just like that to the shifter right there. So that's how I'm running that. I can't do it with one hand, but you can imagine that's exactly how it's going there. So what else is important to show you guys about this bike? So cooling was a big one for me. Got that taken care of. Also have a manual override switch. Fuel pump was not necessary. I wouldn't recommend messing with that, to be honest. Just too much headache and you don't really need it. The stock fuel pump is just fine. It's louder than this one. It's not a true fuel pump, right? But it's just not worth the headache. What else? If I would to redo this project, I would probably start with like a bigger frame, like a Raptor 700, and I wouldn't cut it up as much as I did. There's just too much R&D engineering geometry to work with that took me way too long to figure out, rather than just using that and like buying a extended swing arm that fits the Raptor 700 instead. But yeah, so airbox was a big one, cooling was a big one, tuning was definitely a headache and a half. But once I got all those things figured out, this thing does wheelies and it's a lot of fun. I have a 13 tooth up front, and I believe, I gotta check, but probably 65 out back. For those of you interested, drop a comment below, and would love to answer your questions, and I'll maybe post a few updates here and there.